Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back another video day, and today the Cincinnati Bengals win 27-20 against the Dallas Cowboys during Monday Night Football. What a game! I just think you really knew this was going to be a good game, like a shootout down to the end, and I didn't see it any other way. I don't think really anybody else saw it any other way. Just because when you have a game where it's, one team, you have a skilled offense like the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow the season he's having, Jamar Chase the season he's having, and then they have other guys like Chase Brown and T. Higgins and some of the tight ends they have, like Gesicki and Tanner Hudson. I think they have some very skilled tight ends. The offense they have going up against a defense like the Dallas Cowboys, who have been really bad this year, like, roster wise, the Cowboys have a good defense. It's just I don't know why they haven't been able to be good this year. It's really hard to understand how a defense that was really good last year and I still think is good, like talent wise, has been really bad this year defensively. So when you got a Bengals defense, when you got a Cowboys defense that's struggling against a Bengals offense, like we've seen this season. But then you also have the Bengals defense, which has been just as worse, literally probably the worst red zone I think they are the worst defense out. Besides Carolina, Cincinnati's defense is the worst defense in football. And even though the Cowboys offense is still not good, I don't think it's nearly as good as the Bengals are. The Cowboys still have some bright spots in their offense. CeeDee Lamb and Rico Dowdle, and he had a very impressive game back-to-back, really good games for Rico Dowdle. So when you're going up against the Bengals defense and you still have CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver and Rico Dowdle at running back, it's not very hard for the Cowboys to be successful offensively. And 20 points for the Cowboys tonight, I mean, wasn't enough to win, and I don't think it's enough to win against a Bengals team that's been so good offensively this year, but I know it's not as good as the last couple weeks. I think last week the Cowboys, they scored 20 against the Giants. They scored 27 points, but only 20 points offensively because they had a defensive touchdown. And then the week before, I think they put up 27 points offensively, 34 total. Outside of those 2 weeks, the offense has not been very bright. Like before that, they scored 10 points against Houston, 6 against Philadelphia. So 20 points offensively is not bad for Dallas. And I thought Dallas didn't play their best. Cooper Rush threw an interception. At the end, it was really bad with the block punt. You wouldn't expect a block punt to go, to be a bad thing. I've rarely seen what I saw tonight. The block punt and hits Dallas. Cincinnati recovers. That was nuts. And then Jamar Chase. Then the Bengals and Jamar Chase score real quick. The way all that happened, I don't think I've ever seen that. But I think the offense actually wasn't that bad today. For Rico Dowdle to go out there and get 130 rushing yards and only 18 carries, he was fantastic. CeeDee Lamb had almost 100 receiving yards and a touchdown. He was great in this game. I think the only thing that is negative about CeeDee Lamb is I just don't understand how the Cowboys did not try to get CeeDee Lamb more involved in the second half. I think a big reason probably has to do with Rico Dowdle, was how good he was in this game, and was probably better Rico Dowdle was probably better in the second half than he was in the first half. But I thought CeeDee Lamb was terrific in the beginning of this game, the first quarter and a half. And you really didn't see that the rest of the game. And I think you could probably credit the Bengals defense for that, and also say that Rico Dowdle also had a role in that because of all of his rushing yards, as he had 130 rushing yards in this game. But so 27-20 is the final score. Let's go over the scoring summary. First score of the game was a Cooper Rush to CeeDee Lamb 11-yard touchdown. Great touchdown catch for CeeDee Lamb. Fourth down decision this was on a fourth down. Good decision by Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys here, if you ask me. I mean, The Bengals' red zone defense is one of the worst red zone defense in football. And the Cowboys had to capitalize, and it was a fourth and short. I think it was 4th and 1. The Cowboys elected to throw to their number one guy, and it worked. And funny enough, this was the first time the Cowboys in 8 games had a first quarter touchdown, offensive touchdown, and or I think any touchdown. And that kind of shows how bad the Cincinnati Bengals defense is. Then, right after that, we saw a long 6-minute drive for the Bengals, which would end off with a Joe Burrow 5-yard touchdown pass to Jamar Chase, his first of 2 of the day, ties the game at 7. And then in the second quarter, Brandon Aubrey, best kicker in football, makes a 35-yarder, 10-7 with 6 minutes remaining. Things get interesting in the final couple minutes because Joe Burrow throws a 19-yard touchdown pass to Chase Brown, and the Bengals get the ball back at the end of the half. Before the end of the half, even though they just scored a touchdown, and in 1 minute and 20 seconds, Joe Burrow leads a 36-yard drive that caps off in Cade York with a 37-yard kick. Before that, he made both of his extra points. And funny thing about Cade York, I'm sure a lot of people have seen this, but Cade York's girlfriend is a Cowboys cheerleader. That has to be a weird car ride home if he's riding home with his girl. Well, I'm sure he's going back with the team because they're on the road, but it still has to be weird with the girlfriend. But look, Cade York had a good night. 37 hit a 37-yarder, hit a 29-yarder, and the rest of the game had 3 extra points. I know it's a bunch of short kicks, it's a bunch of easy kicks, so his range didn't really get tested in this game. But her boyfriend had a good game, and the team she cheers for did not. That's a really weird situation for someone to be in. But he made the 37-yarder to go into halftime, and then we saw the Cowboys in their first possession out of the second half. In the second half, Cooper rushed to Brandon Cook's 3-yard touchdown. Brandon Cook back-to-back games with a touchdown now, and it's 17-17. And then Brandon Aubrey makes a 47-yarder. It's 20-17. The Cowboys take the lead as their first lead since Brandon Aubrey made a field goal to give them a 3-point lead in the second quarter. Funny, interesting thing about this is that the last time the Cowboys played the Bengals, Cooper Rush started for an injured Dak Prescott, and the Cowboys won 2017. So here we were in the fourth quarter, 14 minutes remaining. The Dallas was up 2017, the same exact score of the last time these two teams played. Can the Cowboys defense end up stopping the Bengals and history repeats itself? Nope. Cade York makes a 29-yard field goal to tie the game. That was 10 minutes left. For the next 8 minutes, there was not a lot of offense for either teams until, with 2 minutes left, Cowboys were able to get a defensive stop, and it was looking really good because the Cowboys had a sack. There was a bunch of penalties for the Bengals offensive line, and unfortunately, I think the blocked field goal really hurt them, just blocking it in general, because the Bengals were punting at the 21-yard line. I mean, with a rookie punter, so you have, I think, the dangerous one, if not the most dangerous, one of the most dangerous kick returners in the NFL with Turpin. So in that situation, I don't know why you go for the blocked field goal. The block punt. Yes, it could really help the Cowboys, but that is also a situation where it can really hurt you too, and it did really hurt the Dallas Cowboys in this football game, especially when even if he punts at the most 50, even if he punts the ball at the most 50 yards, Turpin's getting the ball at the 30. He averages 12 yards per return. If he gets what he averages, he's at least getting to the 42, if not farther than that. And you got a kicker that can make it from 67. I think it would have been better for the Cowboys to let Turpin and Brandon Aubrey do their magic instead of trying to block the punt. But that was a bad situation, and it ended up being a 40-yard touchdown for Jamar Chase, 27-20. All right, game leaders: Joe Burrow, 30 for 44, 369 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. Interception for Hooker. I'm gonna get to the Cowboys defense because I actually thought the Cowboys defense had some strong suits in this game, and their defense I thought actually did some good things. Some And that's been the case the last couple of weeks. But I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. Obviously, sure, it's never great when a defense gives up 369 passing yards, but it's to Joe Burrow, and I thought the run defense was the best I've seen it at times this year, as their run defense has been literally one of the worst run defenses in football. So definitely better than I've seen at times. As you've seen multiple running backs near 200 rushing yards against this Cowboys defense before, so I think to limit Chase Brown below 60 rushing yards is really good for this defense. Cooper Rush threw 16 for 31, 183 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, like, same thing with CeeDee Lamb. I mean, Cooper Rush's passing yards aren't going to be very high when you have Rico Dowdle running for 131, and we're going to get to Rico Dowdle now. I already talked about Chase Brown a little bit. He had 14 carries for 58 rushing yards, a lead Cincy. Rico Dowdle, 18 carries, 131 rushing yards. Rico Dowdle's looked really good in these last couple games. Ran for well over 100 against the Giants on Thanksgiving. Now it's 131 against the Bengals. I know it hasn't been against two great defenses these last 2 weeks, but I mean, like, Rico Dowdle this season before these last 2 weeks has faced bad run defenses and still has not performed well. So Rico Dowdle in these last 2 weeks has looked amazing. And, look, they're starting to trust him more, and I think he's a really solid running back. I just think if you're the Cowboys in a situation, do you see Rico Dowdle as the running back of the future? And I think at one point in the upcoming draft, the Cowboys do need to draft a running back at some point in the draft. But with how good Rico Dowdle is playing right now, do you waste a first-round draft pick on Ashton Jeanty in the first round, who's a spectacular player, but when you already have a Rico Dowdle, or do you draft a running back later in the draft that still has a lot of talent and use your first-round pick on something else, like to help out the defense, maybe go get another wide receiver to add next to CeeDee Lamb, or, hell, maybe draft a quarterback, and then draft a running back later in the draft to pair with Rico Dowdle. That will be a tricky decision for the Cowboys to make this offseason, if I had to say. I think there are a lot of easy decisions the Cowboys should be able to make this offseason, like getting rid of Mike McCarthy, or drafting a quarterback who could eventually replace Dak Prescott at some point in the draft, whether it's in the first round or it's in the second, third, or fourth round. But I think a trickier decision will be, if you're in the position where Ashton Jeanty is available in the first round, do you improve this defense that has been so terrible this year, or add in a wide receiver to pair next to CeeDee Lamb, so you don't have to rely on CeeDee Lamb as much, or do you go with Ashton Jeanty and pair him next to Rico Dowdle? I think it'll be a very interesting thing in the draft this year to see what the Cowboys do in the first round. All right, Jamar Chase, 14 receptions, 177 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. He was spectacular, of course, as always. CeeDee Lamb, 6 receptions, 93 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Let's cover some other stats from this game. I went over Dowdle and Brown. There wasn't a lot of rushing yards outside of that. Turpin had 15 rushing yards. Jamar Chase had 14. That was really it. Chase Brown had 6 receptions for 65 receiving yards and a touchdown. Osivas had 4 receptions for 41 receiving yards. Mike Gesicki had 3 receptions for 24 receiving yards. T. Higgins, soon to potentially be a New England Patriot, 2 receptions for 23 receiving yards. Tanner Hudson also had 1 catch for 19. Outside of CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, 3 receptions for 32 receiving yards. Luke Schoonmaker, the backup tight end, 2 receptions for 22 receiving yards. Turpin had 1 catch for 16. There was a fumble loss for the Cowboys in this game. That was the blocked punt. Mari Ordaway, I hope I said his name right, lost the fumble. And that ended up being recovered by another really tough name to pronounce, Mema Nonjagamata. Also, there was another fumble for the Bengals. Joe Burrow did fumble in this game, but it was recovered by tight end Tanner Hudson. That was really it for fumbles. Now, defensive stats, I thought the Cowboys defense actually, there are a lot of bright spots in this game. I mean, you had Eric Kendricks, who had a really solid night with 12 tackles, had a tackle for loss. Donovan Wilson had 9 tackles and and a half a sack. 1.5 sacks for Marest Lefo, who was spectacular in this game for the Cowboys defense with 1.5 sacks and 1 tackle for loss. I mean, you had also, Malik Hooker getting an interception, which that has been rare this year for this Dallas defense to get interceptions. And I thought this defense actually made some solid plays. Trevon Diggs made some really good plays in this game. Deron Bland had some nice plays, but at the same time, they also had their struggles as Jamar Chase had 177 yards on them. Another guy who I thought had a really solid game and unfortunately got injured was, DeMarvion Overshown. He was making some plays, had 6 tackles, was making some nice hits for this Cowboys defense. There were a couple, I know there was at least one, but I think there were a couple third downs where he was able to make some plays to stop the Bengals offense, and he was doing a really good job out there. And I really hate to see DeMarvion Overshown go down because I'll be honest, I hate the Dallas Cowboys, but I am a Texas Longhorns fan, and even if Texas Longhorns fans, even if Texas Longhorns players go to teams I don't like, I still try my best, even though I don't like their current team, to root for them. Like, for instance, I absolutely hate the Kansas City Chiefs, but Xavier Worthy's a Texas Longhorn, so even when he does something good, I still root for him because, that's someone I watch as a Longhorns fan. And then same thing with DeMarvion Overshown. I really dislike the Dallas Cowboys, but every time he does something good, I get really excited because that's the guy I watched for most of his college career at Texas. And it's really tough today. Another Longhorns player, Jonathan Brooks, who was literally just coming back from a torn ACL, tears the same ACL. And it's a very similar story for DeMarvion Overshown. He tore his ACL. I think the only really good thing about this injury for DeMarvion Overshown is that when he tore his ACL the first time, I think they said it was his right. It was his right ACL, and this time it was his left that was hurt. So if it is a ACL injury for DeMarvion, it is not the same ACL injury. So Jonathan Brooks, unfortunately, tore the same ACL, again, and that's something you do not want to happen. I mean, you don't want to tear your ACL again, whether it's the same one or the other one. But I'm really praying that DeMarvion Overshown's okay because, it'd suck if 2 different Longhorns players who just come back from a ACL injury both go down literally on the same day, or the same distance of days to ACL injuries. So as a Longhorns fan, I hate to see that, even though I dislike the Cowboys so much. But outside of that, there was an interception for Malik Hooker. There was an interception for Geno Stone for the Bengals, and that really recaps this ball game. Great win for the Bengals. They really needed this. 5-8. Really, I mean, I'm not gonna say it saves their season, but it keeps them alive. And the next 4 games, I'm not going to say they got a shot, but if they can win out, I mean, there's definitely a chance for the Bengals to maybe get in the wild card. But you got to win out, and with the defense that we've seen from the Bengals this year, I think that's pretty hard to win out. Especially, I know they still play the Steelers one more time. They play the Browns. I think that should be an easy win, but you got the Steelers. There's a couple other hard matchups for this Bengals team. It's going to be interesting to see how things unfold for Cincinnati. That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out.